Hello everybody, welcome to this project management talk, and today let's discuss how to move from a waterfall process to an agile process. So in this video, I will try to give you my point of view, how we can move from the traditional waterfall processes or maybe even a stage gate process to a more agile process. And before that, I need to make a disclaimer because it is important to say that if your projects are being completed on time and on budget, you deliver full scope and you don't have any major quality issues or any environmental reasons to move to agile, then maybe you should not move to the agile. Probably there are other good things you can do with your time and effort in your organization. So what I mean is that don't move to agile because agile is trendy and everybody's moving to deliver the projects in agile methodology. Anyway, assuming you have a good reason to move, then here are my simple recommendations. So, step 0, and before you change anything, you need to understand what is agile mindset and what kind of problem agile is going to solve for you. Be aware that there are many different interpretations of agile, so here is mine. Agile is about responding to the change in uncertain environments and delivering a better quality product. So let's say if you're supposed to build a house exactly according to its blueprint, then you actually don't really need Agile. And you will achieve this by involving your clients more, your customer more, and also having a more, let's say, democratic approach to the team. So let's say if your project is happening in the middle of nowhere and you don't see your client or even talk with your client for weeks, then you really cannot run Agile. All right, so let's say everything is prepared for you to start your Agile transformation. So step number 1 is that you need to start with your client because the whole idea of Agile is depending on the notion of customer participating in your day-to-day project activities. Traditionally, the customer or the client would be involved on the earliest stage of the project. For instance, they will help to introduce the project to you and communicate the needs and the functional requirements. And then they would kind of slowly disappear, and then they would come back again when it was time to validate the solution or the deliverable or the scope, right? But now what we want to do is that we want the client to be an active part of the project. And in addition to communicating, the requirements and the general information at the beginning of the project, we also want them to be available on daily basis to the project team so they can answer questions like which requirement is more important, or explain the business need behind some of those requirements, or even help the team to find, let's say, alternative solutions in case the original solution is not working, right? Sorry. So this would also mean that the customer will act as a SME, a subject matter expert in our project team. In the Agile terminology and in the Agile world, we call this role a product owner. So if you hear product owner, it's almost like your client or your client representative. So let's say we have onboarded our client successfully. He understands what he needs to do. Now the next big change is coming on the project planning. If you think on a waterfall, a stage gate, or even a V-model project, what we do is that we will break down your scope using a work breakdown structure concept. And we break it down until we create our work packages. Then we will assign a resource to the work package, and with that we will estimate the time and cost of each of those work packages. Then we will link those work packages together, and the total of the work packages will make a complete project plan for us. And usually put it in a Gantt chart, and it would be hundreds of lines. And I would say in many cases, after you've done this, you will baseline your plan, meaning you will freeze your plan, and then you will try to execute according to that plan. Now, when you go to the Agile world, instead of the work packages, you use something called a backlog or a backlog item. And backlog item is similar to the work package, but there is at least two restrictions on it. It is expected that the backlog item will be developed and validated in around 2 weeks, and it also should have its own small scope document, and in Agile world they call it a story. So to be able to make a plan in the Agile way, you will collect all of those backlog items based on their importance and priority, and then you will group them in a 2 weeks of development and validation cycle called a sprint. So you will make a selection out of those backlog items based on the priority you have done, put them in a 2 weeks cycle, which is called sprint. Then you will execute this sprint, and when the sprint is complete, with the outcome of the sprint, with the information you received from this sprint, you will plan the next sprint, and so on and so forth. So basically your project plan will not be a continuous lines of Gantt charts one after the other, but it would be a series of a sprint one after the other. The key here is that the project team and also the product owner should get used to this kind of, let's say, more dynamic planning. So the plan will be always created before you go to the execution. All right. So we have discussed the role of the client. We discussed the changes in the planning method. The next thing we need to discuss is to think about what are the changes on the technical leadership of the project. So traditionally, when your project plan was fixed, then you would have a tech lead who will mainly focus on solving the technical issues. However, here in Agile, because the plan is being developed on each cycle, on each sprint, then the tech lead would also need to focus on the planning side as well. In the Agile terminology, the tech lead is called Scrum Master, and the role of the Scrum Master is to, or one of the roles of the Scrum Master is to define and prioritize the backlog item together with the product owner. The Scrum Master will also distribute the backlog to the team and try to balance the workload between the different team members to make sure each sprint will get finished in time and with full scope. Now, the main point here is that the Scrum Master needs to meet with the team on a daily basis to understand the execution status and make sure the backlog items are getting completed in time. And also, in case of any issue, the Scrum Master will be supporting them. But these daily meetings is a really important part of the Agile, especially because each sprint is only 2 weeks. So you need to meet on a daily basis to be able to keep track of your project. Then after this, we need to prepare the team for the changes. And actually, this part is rather simple because it's not so much changes in the way that the team is working. The main difference for them is that they have to be more transparent. They have to report more often. Basically every day they have to report where they are on the progress and also raise their hand if they have any issues. But on the other hand, they will get more help or a quicker help, so to say, and also a better understanding from their management. And last but not the least, we need to discuss the role of the PM in the Agile. And some will believe that an Agile team does not need a PM, and I do not completely agree with that. I would say on a day-to-day basis, the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the team, the development team can do most of the work. But you always have to remember a project is bigger than just delivering the scope. There are other areas that you have to manage. Let's say you have to manage your budget, you have to manage your risk, you have to manage the communications, the quality processes, the stakeholder management, etc. and etc. So these areas needs to be managed usually by a PM or at least a person who have the sort of project management skill set. And of course, it is important not to forget about this when you move to the Agile, because otherwise you don't communicate correctly to your organization and everybody will be confused about where you are and maybe what kind of support you would need from them. Okay, so this was my experience on how to transform a project from traditional methods to the more modern agile method. Please let me know what you think of it, and if you also have any other ideas, I will be happy to hear that. Thank you.